Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. This one has been a long time coming. I haven't made a video for a couple weeks. I guess that just goes to show you how much energy and time that people who do this for a living, like professional YouTubers, how much energy they really pour into this. I have a lot of respect for that. The content is like constantly having to be created. You have to edit it and perfect it, make it good. You have to look at algorithms, try to get more and more people to look at your videos. And it's definitely like a full-time job, a lot of hours spent doing it. Nothing like the more unprofessional kind of hobbyist stuff that I put up. And sometimes I get too tired, you get a little bit sick, you just don't feel like doing it, you don't have the energy at the end of the day. So all those things sort of led to the kind of the delay, or maybe the big jumping time. Sometimes I put up like a couple of videos back to back to back, because I have a lot of material in case you figure that out. I have a lot of material I can do videos on. It's just a matter of finding the time and the energy, I guess, to do them. So today's going to be a little bit special. I'm not actually going to review any particular piece. I'm actually sitting in my room that I use to display my stuff. It's not really a cave per se, just like a little room that used to be our, like a dining room that we turned into my display area. And I wanted to talk about these display cabinets. It's a long time coming. I had just stuff literally on the floor, so I really wanted something to kind of organize it. It was a mess. On top of that, it was getting dusty. There's danger of, obviously, danger of damage and all that sort of stuff. So I did some research. There's so many display cabinets that you can buy these days. A lot of Besta cases. There's stuff from IKEA. I went many years ago. I went for this display cabinet, which is more like wooden, kind of like this older sort of wood display cabinet with sliding doors. I liked it quite a bit, but unfortunately, its one downside is that the lights are rather weak. So after all this time, there's been more modern options. And after doing some research, I settled on Moducases from Singapore. They are not the cheapest, but I think the president and CEO, Brian Wong, he himself, I think, is a collector as well. And so it's almost like the product, was designed by somebody who also has a love of collectibles, who wants to display them, and is thinking about what he would want. And as it turns out, some of the things that he thinks are important that, he wants is what we all want as well. And so quality is very good. And I kind of made the measurements. The Moducases are modular. That's what they call it, Moducase, right? So the cases are modular. You can put them together. And so he has like prefabricated wall systems put together. But if it doesn't fit your needs, as it didn't fit mine, you can customize a lot of it, and you can kind of customize your own wall display with different cases and different, different blocks, and you can put them all together. So I did all of that, and I waited quite a long time. That is one of the downsides of the company. I think they're getting a lot better, but it's still difficult. I think they're a newer company. They make very good product, and there's obviously a huge niche to be filled. So you have to wait. A lot of collectors from around the world wanted these Moducases. I waited, I think, over 6 months for mine to finally ship. And then they came in this sort of overwhelming amount, close on to, I gotta think, 16, 17, 18. I lost count. Separate, boxes, all very heavy. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about the process of building them, the pros, the cons, my experience with Brian in terms of customer service, my overall feelings about the display cases, that type of thing. So where to start? Okay, first of all, you have to build obviously all of these yourself. So you know, for some of us who've maybe a little bit older, a little bit more, more well off, you know, the sort of furniture we buy is no longer IKEA furniture. We buy a little maybe better furniture that's already prefabricated. This is sort of an unwelcome blast to the past. But you can imagine that cases of this type of quality and this size can't just be easily shipped already pre-made. They come completely flat, and you have to make them yourself. And that's a huge sort of labor of love. It's a lot of work, a lot of time to make it right, and there's a lot of nuance to it. So let's start first of all, so that you're not too bored. I can start figuring things out. So this is remote control. This does not come with a Moducase, but they do make it very easy to rig something like this up. I'm not like a big electrical guy, but this is like literally plug and play. So I bought this off Amazon. It's a remote control plug. You plug it in to the little strip, and then you read the instructions. You figure it out, and then you press the on button, and everything lights up all at once. So with this lit up, we can start talking about the various things about it. So first of all, the case itself, the sides of the case here, this is all metal, very, very solid metal. And you also have the LED lights, the lighting strips, which you can install. It lights it up very, very nicely, very, very evenly. Hopefully you don't get too distracted by, I guess, the stuff that's in there. This is maybe like a little impromptu collection video, but you can see it's very, 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 very beautifully lit up. The back is some sort of like cardboard, so very classy, and these can all be customized. Some people can make the back clear, or you can even make a mirror, but I just chose a regular black. And the front is acrylic, a huge sheet of acrylic, and extremely clear, and you can easily spray and wipe to get fingerprints off. So all very, very good quality. The overall display is very modern. Again, you can contrast this view right over here with the view over there, which is more traditional, a little bit older, more antique with the wood. But when I wanted to buy a display cabinet, my number one priority was to kind of maximize the glass, maximize the acrylic, so you can see, you can see the collectibles, and sort of minimize the shelving and anything that gets in the way between your eyes and the statues that are in there. So overall, I'm very, very pleased with the look, with the security, with the weight. I feel like it's very, very secure. I don't think that there's any chance, in my opinion, that's going to crash or crumble or anything like that. So again, I'm happy with that. Now, in terms of how much money you're looking to spend without discounts or that type of thing or sales, I mean, this entire wall system will run you over $3,500, including shipping. So it's not cheap. It's a big investment, but again, you can put quite a lot of stuff in there, and again, it's created by a collector of a special interest. There is a lot of flexibility. For instance, you can put the shelf over here at any level you want. Now that creates some problems as well, but again, you can put it any level you want, so you can kind of customize it to some degree. And this is the only display cabinet, the only one that's not completely custom, where a Lego UCS Millennium Falcon can actually be put behind glass and it fits. As you can see, I actually have both of them. I've made YouTube videos kind of reviewing these Millennium Falcons. The bottom one is the more ancient, the bottom one is the newer version, 7,500 pieces, and the top one, of course, is the old one, about 5,200. Within the sub-millimeter give, it actually does fit. So that's one of the reasons actually I was so out of space, I was thinking about, believe it or not, actually destroying this, like literally turning it apart and putting it away. But once I figured out that I could display them, I had to take the opportunity, and I think it does look pretty amazing, pretty cool to actually have both UCS Millennium Falcons made. You can kind of contrast and compare the two of them, resting in their places secure. So that's really nice. Down here are some of my Wolverines, some really rare ones that I haven't reviewed yet. I reviewed this one here, of course. This is the X-Force Wolverine versus Ninja. And this is the original Yellow Suit Wolverine versus Ninja. So this is kind of what you get when you put it all together. These statues, by the way, are not particularly themed. I was just trying to put everything together, and hold a second here. I'm gonna move back so you can kind of get an idea of the entire thing. So if you move back enough, you can see the entire wall. All of these statues were just littered all over the place. They were littered on the stairs, on the kitchen table. It was a disaster. And it was like, I think 2 a.m, and I was just desperate to get all this stuff behind glass as soon as possible. I didn't want to pull like an all-nighter doing that. And, in the morning, people are going to be stirring. Breakfast has to be made. So I just literally threw everything everywhere just behind it and then just put everything together. So when I have time and the inspiration strikes me, I will begin to try to move things around a little bit and try to create a little bit more space. Just get things maybe done a little bit better so it's not so cluttered. And it's not just like this haphazard, just, spare heads, change of heads everywhere. So hopefully there'll be a little bit more theming. But the important thing is that, the pieces are, again, just behind glass and protected. So it took me close to 30 hours, maybe even longer, to build all of this. I didn't have any help. I had to do it all by myself. It was very heavy. I had to use some ingenuity to move these heavy pieces. As you can see, even down below, you can see I had to use the sliders right here in order to slowly drag it across the carpet and the floor. The overall build quality, I have to say, is aces. Very good, like I mentioned. The instructions can be a little bit unclear. And also, the first time you build one of these, there is a learning curve. There have been other Moducase reviews out on YouTube. Have you take a look at those. But there's a lot of little tricks and tips that you have to sort of figure out yourself, and so when you're first building it, it's not easy. It's really awkward because these are huge cases, and if you're doing it by yourself, it's difficult to kind of juggle everything together before you tighten all of the bolts. So there is that to think of. If you're fortunate enough to have somebody be willing to help you, then that would be great. But I had to do it all by myself. My wife isn't really interested in all this stuff, and then my 2 daughters are too young, and I did this by myself basically in the middle of the night when everybody else was asleep. So that's kind of what it took to get all of that together. In terms of some of the areas of improvement, I kind of talked to Brian about that. Sometimes the particular quality control, and I don't mean by quality control, I don't mean kind of like how secure things are, but I'm talking more about like for instance, when I was getting it, the very first Moducase I built, it was basically missing an Allen wrench. So they give you Allen wrenches. There's 2 Allen wrenches for 2 sizes, and in the very first one I was going to build, it was missing an Allen wrench. They gave me 2 of the smaller Allen wrenches, and the larger Allen wrench was missing, which is a little bit annoying because if you, of course, have built a couple, then you're fine. You would have an Allen wrench, but it was a little bit of bad luck. Like the very first box I opened, the very first Moducase I built, I didn't have the tools, and so that was a little bit frustrating. And so those are little tiny things where at the factory level, they could do a better job with quality control checking to make sure these things don't happen. There was another case where one of the screws that are embedded in the in the sides of the rods, basically, you're actually putting these guys here together, right, making your box, and there are actually screws embedded in here that you're using to put it together. Well, one of the screws was missing. So that was really frustrating because obviously if you are missing a screw, you can't build the case. Other situations where, again, sparing you the gruesome details, in order for the back to fit together, some of that cardboard has to be cut a certain way. The corners have to be cut, and in one case, the corner wasn't cut, and so the actual sides wasn't able to be put together, and I had to actually cut it manually with a scissor. So these are all things that you will learn when you've built a couple yourself, and you immediately can tell, okay, there's something wrong, this is not standard, etc., etc. So that wasn't too good, and it made the building a lot more tedious and a lot more difficult because the instructions are not quite as good, and then when you are missing tools, missing screws, when the parts aren't cut perfectly, then that just adds to kind of the labor, adds to the sweat. And I really do feel strongly that there should be YouTube videos about how to build all of the different cases. They do have one for this guy right here, which is the DF60, which is kind of their cube, but they need one of the DF120, of the Max, 140 series, etc., etc. I think that's really, really important to have, so that on video you can kind of get a more visual representation of what you're supposed to be doing. That really helps a great amount. In addition, they're also speaking about quality control issues, just little dumb things that made it annoying. For instance, take a look here at the light. I hope you can see here that it's basically stuck on the roof with double-sided tape. And you can see that the light has directionality. It's actually shining down onto the pieces. And in order for that to happen, they want you to stick it up in this direction. And that's how the light is shining down. Light is shining downward, okay? I'm gonna go to the side so you can kind of get an idea here of the slope of it. Okay, so it's not a square, not shining directly down, but at an angle of 45 degrees. Well, the problem is the way they have the wires hooked up. If you put it up like this with a double-sided tape already pre-attached, and they do that for you, then as you go all the way to the back and then you go all the way down, you'll find that the plugs do not actually fit into the final power cord. They had the male to female swapped. If you want everything to fit perfectly, you have to take this and then you have to actually turn it around. But if that happens, the light will be facing out, which is that's a joke, right? You can't have that. You can't have the light literally shining out of the case into your eye. That's obviously not what's meant to happen. And so I had to get like a male to female adapter in order to make that happen. Either that or I had to actually scrape the double-sided tape off the top and reapply it to the other side to make it happen. So this was 100% an error by the factory or by the people who are putting on the double-sided tape. And it does, again, it's like a quality control thing where they have to be smarter than that, or there has to be like a very clear guideline, like, no, you can't put the double-sided tape on this thing. It's not the same. You have to put it there, because when you're doing the male to female for the cords, there is directionality. That does matter. So again, I had to spend a little bit extra just to sort of make that happen. So those are things, again, that you have to troubleshoot as you move along. Now, one thing about the customer service, it is flawless. You can imagine that there's a lot of anger and frustration when it's 1 a.m. and you're like, sweat's pouring down your face. You're by yourself trying to do this, and then things aren't working. There's missing things. There's not a lot of love and forgiveness in your heart when that happens. But I have to say that, with the time change aside, Brian, the actual president CEO, like the guy whose company this is, was actually available on Messenger, and essentially was just real time going through this with me. Every question answered sometimes within seconds, which is kind of insane when you consider that I'm just one of his customers. He has how many hundreds, thousands of people. So it's pretty amazing that he's as responsive as he is. He's a super nice guy, obviously cares. All the criticism that's constructive, he takes to heart. So I feel really good about giving him my business. Like I said, no product is completely perfect, and he is reasonably new. It's not like he's been around for 50 years or anything like that. He's still starting up. He's still learning. I'll give you an example. The one case where there was a missing screw. I mean, he could have easily just said, okay, just go to Home Depot and buy it. It's like, it's going to cost you what, like $1, $2. But he took ownership. He felt really bad that that happened, and he actually bought an entire case of screws with the one screw size I needed, and he shipped it I think 1 day or 2 day, and so overnight I think he overnighted it, and so he spent like $24. I think it was $25, of which the majority was shipping, just to give me that one screw so I wouldn't be delayed in making my cases. So it's hard to, stay angry at a guy who takes that level of ownership, of his product and strives to make it right. So again, while there are going to be frustrations and this is not going to be easy. Like this is not going to be one of those things where you're going to build in like half an hour. It's going to be a lot of time and effort, and there's going to be that. But again, overall, the end product I think is absolutely worth the effort. It looks very, very clean, very, very classy. It's gorgeous, and again, you're supporting the right type of guy with the right attitude. Another area to be aware of, this screw right here is sort of a safety screw. It holds it in place. There are magnets all the way along that clips it in, so it actually goes in pretty nicely. It's a little bit challenging because I have carpet. If you're doing this on like tile or floor, it goes in a lot easier. Here you have to wriggle a little bit more because again the carpet has thickness. Up top it's invisible, but in addition to the magnets, there's a little tiny peg over here, and then that corresponds to the hole of the acrylic plate. And you can see here that there is a little bit of a gap. And again, it just has to do with quality control, where their peg on the actual metal and the hole does not line up. And they don't make it very easy to shift the peg in there. They make it easy to shift everything else, but they don't make it easy to shift the peg. And so because of that, when the holes don't align, you're gonna have these little gaps. You can actually Dremel the hole. To do that, you'll Dremel and create a lot of acrylic dust, which you have to be very careful. Don't breathe that in; it's not good for your lungs. But it really wasn't worth the effort. Most of them fit decently, but for some of the ones that are very long, like this DF120, see how long that is? There's actually 2 pegs, and most of the time the pegs are off. Like they're just off by like literally half a millimeter, but it'll create gaps here, and so you have to deal with that. So that's another example of little tiny quality control issues that's almost invisible when you put everything together, but you definitely can feel that when you're trying to put it together for the first time and this thing doesn't come on all the way or it doesn't fit perfect. It's very frustrating. So they do have to, I think, work a little bit more on the factory level and make sure that that's important, because when you are building these type of cases, it's a millimeter level quality standard. You're off by half a millimeter, it doesn't work. It doesn't fit together as well as it should. That's sort of a big deal. There was also one situation where I think I didn't even know, but they weren't able to give me all of the things I needed. They had to ship another package to kind of make up for those. So, that was really kind of difficult as well, because when you're building, you have to kind of wait, for all of that to come in. He was very kind because I ordered such a big purchase, like this entire wall system. He threw in a lot of weight stability. Like there's these things that you actually put into the bottom of the bases to give it greater weight capacity, and he tossed those in for free. So again, I want to give Brian absolutely Moducase credit for their amazing, phenomenal customer service, while also providing kind of detailed, constructive criticism about the things that they could do maybe better or they can improve. So there's that as well. There were absolutely actually a couple screws that didn't work. You could have screwed it all the way. I had to remove them and use actually some of the extra screws that he overnighted in that little screw case. So again, those are things that at the factory level, they have to be a little bit better about making sure that everything fits, that everything comes together correctly. This here is a nightmare. So understand that this is the case here. This is a DF120 from here to here. This is another DF120 from here to here. And I bought a actual shelf. This shelf is rock solid. I hope you can take a look here at how thick this acrylic is. I think it's like at least a 1/4 inch, if not a 1/2 inch, maybe thicker than that. There's no doubt that this is going to take a huge amount of weight. No doubt at all about stability. But the problem here is that unlike a bookshelf where you just put the little pegs on the corners and it's a pre-drilled hole, and you just put the shelf on top of these little pegs, there's no hole at all, none. You have to actually freehand measure exactly where the holes have to be. You have to put in these little tiny holes that come with it. Like it actually has a little metal, just like a metal slug that slips into this groove, and then you kind of shift it up and down. You're gonna tighten the screws. I'll give you an example. Once I got good at it, I was able to make one entire DF120 case. On average, I can make one of these in about 45 minutes. It took over 1 hour just to put this shelf in position because of you can imagine how huge it is. Take a look from the side, how big that is. And you have to actually get it perfectly level. So every time you have to put a shelf on one of these things, there's one shelf right here. This is another shelf right here, another shelf right over here, and another shelf, of course, right over here. These shelves just create an incredible amount of work in order for you to level it, in order for you to put everything together. And, just being anal, trying to make it perfect, it was a lot of work. And so I don't know how they can necessarily make it easier. I mean, it might be nicer to have some pre-drilled holes already measured for you. Or maybe along the metal, it would be nice if they could engrave some marks so that you know where you're going to be at. Just little tiny subtle things like that could really help with putting those shelves in place. Because I think one of the major selling points is putting a shelf in and kind of dictating or sort of customizing exactly the spaces you want, but it makes it really, really difficult. And for one of the narrow cubes like this, it's not too bad. You can still maneuver it. But when it's something this big, that's really, really tough. And so you kind of have to think twice about doing that. So that's a lot of labor. Another thing they have to work on is that obviously in order to stabilize the units, you have to connect them. And so, for instance, this unit here and this unit here, you stack, but it's not quite as stable. So this metal rod actually goes through the groove, and then you actually tighten the screws here, and that's what actually stabilizes it. The problem with it, again, is that the fit is not perfect. They gotta have better fit. Every millimeter counts. I'm sorry, 1/2 millimeter counts. When it's off, and this thing on the 4 corners, right here, and you can tell actually here, and then back there, 1, 2, and then all the way over here, 3, 4. When these things don't fit perfectly, it doesn't slide down. Okay, this doesn't slide all the way; it gets stuck over here. And so when it's stuck over here, you can't get it down, and then you can't lock it in place. So another YouTube video, oh my God, that poor guy, he actually lifted the entire case and then kind of rested it on each of the 4 rods and then tried to wriggle by like 1/2 millimeter at a time to force it down. That's really, really tough. So for those of you who are trying to build this, the trick here is you line up the top and the bottom here as well as you can. You basically go from the top all the way down, and then every one of them is going to be stuck here. Okay, none of them is going to fit. And then what you do is you actually take a screwdriver, like a flat bladed screwdriver, you put it on top here, you take a hammer, and then you literally, little by little, you actually hammer it down. And even though it's not perfect, there's enough give where it will go down real tight. And then once you have overlapping, we have the 2 holes overlapping this joint, and you have the screw here and here, then you tighten down. One of them was so badly fit, that even with this done, with 3 of them done, there was a noticeable ridge here where there's just no way to get through it. It was a millimeter off. And I actually didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I thought I was going to have to actually, like literally just not have one of the joints. But I was anal. I didn't want to give up. And so what I did was I actually took the screwdriver, actually destroyed the ledge. The screwdriver is heavier metal than this. And using the screwdriver, actually obliterated little by little by little the ridge. And then I put this on and I basically forced it through. So that's, ladies and gentlemen, that is not in the instruction booklet. That's not mentioned at all. So I want to say again, do not think that this is not putting together like Legos. Okay, this is not Legos. There's going to be little areas where it's not going to come together. There's going to be QC problems, and you're going to have to think through them. Brian will help you, but those are the things that have to get done, and that there's no way around them. Okay, there's no way around them when this case gets put on this case, and it doesn't fit, and you have to figure a way around it. So those are things that, again, I think with future iterations, hopefully, the factory just got to do a better job. They just have to have better control, okay, better machining, so things are able to fit the way they are supposed to. So as you can see, though, when done correctly, each one of these cases of wall systems are rock solid. Look at the join over here. You can see in the back the screws that hold them together. You can kind of see how that is. I put a little bit extra in the front just to have extra support, but on the back of it, there's like 8 of them. So many, you get a lot of these extras. And so these things are, again, immovable, completely set in place. So remember that for the money you're getting, you're just getting the case itself. If you want lights, that's extra. If you want these bars that allow you to put extra weight, we call them enhancements or stabilizers, those cost extra. And the top, which is these boards wrapped in, I guess, fake leather that allows you to put pieces, like huge pieces that you can't fit into the display cabinet. That actually comes extra as well, but they're very fine quality, very nice wood wrapped in leather, and you lay it on top of the actual metal frame to give the support. And so as you can see, I have one for all the way across. Eventually I'm going to put my Magneto on top of this guy right here, and here it levels very nicely. Okay, it levels very nicely. So those all cost extra. So what you're buying when you see the price is just the case. If you want lights, you want the top board, those do come extra. Okay, so that's basically it. I know that most of the videos, kind of sounds like me, so just complaining about all the things that went wrong when I spent 35 hours building it. But I don't want it to come across excessively negative. I just feel like to me this is still the best option for my collecting needs, because it's got just so many it's got so many things right that I have to have, but it's not perfect. And I wanted to make this video so that for those of you who are going to buy these, and for those of you who are going to make it, you're going to know you're not alone, and to be just mentally, emotionally prepared when these things happen, so you can kind of power through them. But trust me, you are going to be able to build it, and it will be worth the blood, sweat, and tears. And again, Brian has the best customer service on the market, and he'll be there with you every step of the way, and he'll help you. And he genuinely, truly cares about sort of creating the best display possible. And I think he derives so much joy and pleasure from watching other collectors' collections in his cases. I really do feel like he feels so much pride because they all look so good. And people display Legos, they display 1/6 scale pieces, so there's a lot of flexibility in that. And just to let you know, I'm going to be buying other displays, cabinets from him, another wall system, and I'm going to have another one where I'm going to be putting my Star Wars ships. A lot of my stuff has lights, and again, Moducase is one of the few products that's going to be able to actually support those lights. It's going to look pretty nice, pretty amazing when I'm done putting all of that together. And so that's kind of my thoughts. You're gonna work for it, and there's gonna be some frustrations. And it won't be perfect, but when you look at the final product, it just fills you with so much joy. It's just like it's finally there, being displayed the way it's supposed to. So in my mind, I'm going to be giving him a lot more of my business because, at least for me, this is the best option I have. I think this is the best for me in terms of how I want to display my collection. One final thing is that I had to choose these particular configurations in terms of the DF series because of my wall system in terms of the dimensions of this room. As you can see, the two wall systems side by side. This one on my left is a little bit less length. I guess I don't know how to describe it. It's just a little bit smaller than the one on the right. But as you can see, there's barely any give at all. I mean, that's where all the wires are sitting. Both wall systems are connected to. They're both connected to a power outlet on the behind the left wall system, which you can't see. And so there's very little give, as you can see here, right? It's right up to the edge, over there. But these systems, the DF series, are actually, really meant for, I think, 1/6 scale Hot Toys figures, Enter Bay, maybe those type of things. For statues, I sort of jury rigged it. I made it work. It's more for 1/6 scale, 1/5 scale. When you're talking about big 1/4 scale statues from Sideshow, from XM Studios, etc., maybe even Prime One Studios, where they're huge 1/3 scale, I would recommend, if your room fits it, I would recommend the Max 140 series, because those not only are able to sustain a lot more weight, but they're also a little bit bigger, taller, wider, deeper, and that actually makes a big difference. I found that a couple of my statues a little bit taller, for instance, here, Captain Marvel, I mean, she barely clears it. I'm talking like literally less than an inch. I had to actually tilt the statue in order to get her, inside this lip. I had to tilt the statue to actually get her to fit. And, she had to maneuver around the lights. I mean, that's how tight this 1/4 scale statue is. And there's other ones similarly very tight, like, Pocahontas here from J. Scott Campbell. I mean, this girl, again, I had to be tilted in order to fit her in. So, those are things to think about. Also, statues are obviously much heavier than Hot Toys figures, and so the weight does add up. Each shelf can tolerate close to 70 pounds, which you may think is a huge amount, but when you have 5, 6, 7, 8 statues sometimes on there, that adds up very quickly. On the bottom, it doesn't matter if it's a Max 140 or a DF 120. I have all DFs, by the way, but in the bottom, of course, because you're on the floor, it doesn't matter. You can put 100 pounds if you wanted to, but when you go up above, the weight does begin to, it does begin to make a difference. And while Brian is very conservative in his specifications, he doesn't want to be blamed, obviously, for tens of thousands of dollars of collectibles being destroyed if the case collapses because you put too much weight on them. I think he's very conservative. I think when you build it, you'll feel how rock solid the floor is. You can see how thick this wooden board is that supports all these characters, and it's all solid metal. But still, you have to take that into account. And again, the Max series, the weight is almost, I think, 50% more weight. So those are things, again, to think about. So a pretty long review of my display cabinet. I'm very, very pleased with it. Always love the lighting and all of that. It's this nice, even, soft white light. I'm very pleased with the way all of that gets put together. I'm not super happy with how I've shoved everything in there, but it is what it is. I have to, over time, slowly, move things apart. I got Punisher and Black Canary right next to Samus Aran from First for Figures, the Captain Marvel. I got Nightmare. I got a 5th scale Spider-Gwen custom portrait. I got Smog the Dragon with random quarter scale helmets from Lord of the Rings. I got Smog next to a Fell Beast. I got J. Scott Campbell kits, custom statues. I got this beautiful Fearless Journey, and then of course a life-size Silicon Yoda from Howard Seft. So it's just all over the place here, but you know, eventually like there's an Alien Queen with just a random custom like kit Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and then a Lord of the Rings helm. So a lot of work, a long way to go to make it at least properly themed, but at least again, you know, they're actually displayed, not just randomly on the floor on a shelf and that type of thing. So we spend so much time, you know, making video reviews and talking about our statues, and of course, you know, that's the core of our collecting. That I think it's nice to sometimes also shed a little bit of light on the display cabinets. I mean, you probably have, again, easily over $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 of collectibles. So if you have that much in here, then you know you should spend a little bit of that just to protect them, to keep them at least dust free, and put them in a display setting that's classy, and that'll be, you know, make it more appreciable, and more appreciated. I wish I could put the taller and even the bigger stuff up top behind glass, but that's just impossible. It is really hard for us to, you know, put something this big. I mean, each of these alien busts, life size, 3 feet in length. Look at this wolf bust right over here with the Little Mermaid underneath, cowering underneath him. Look at my alien warrior here. Look at the P2 and the P1. I mean, these are big, heavy pieces that are gigantic, and to put them behind glass, it would take just too much room. And of course, on the other side are my Scott Marshall Predators, the wolf, and then another display cabinet with curio cases and stuff on top. Eventually, you know, I probably will replace those 2 wall systems again with the Moducase, so that everything kind of is themed. And then these guys, I don't think I'll put behind glass, but I'll make another large Moducase at the bottom, and I'll put those on instead of individual pedestals. And I have plans again for my master replicas. Signature Millennium Falcon, which not many people have. This is the instruction booklet for my white Magneto. I forgot about that. I have to put that away. So still, as you know, most collectors, the collection is always in flux, always things to do. So I hope you enjoyed sort of this little, you know, review of the Moducase display cabinet, as well as, I guess, a smattering of my collection that I still have. And I'm going to turn off the lights. And until next time, do take care.